All right, everybody. Early riser coming at you. It's September the 20th. It's a Wednesday. Hump day. Yep, it's in the evening time. Already been to work today. Worked a full day. Been home. Been playing with my two puppy girls and eating dinner with the family. Life's good. Felt like doing a update tonight. I'm usually not in the mood. Usually a little tired after work. Tonight I got some energy, so I thought we'd go ahead and knock out the next little 18 miles of the trail. We currently left off at Sassafras Gap Shelter. We walked up there from the Knock, if you remember from last week, and that is a stiff climb. Just to remind everybody, if you're going to leave the Knock and you're trying to make it to Sassafras Gap Shelter, you better make sure you're energized, and if there's weather moving in or whatnot, you better make sure you got time to make it there because that's a rough climb for about 6-7 miles. All right, so today we are here. This is Sassafras Gap. It is at mile marker 143, as we can see right here on the guide. We know Sassafras Gap Shelter was built in 2002. Why is that important? Sometimes newer shelters mean maybe better accommodations or whatever for your planning purposes. We see the shelter is only 0.1 west off the trail, which is good, meaning I don't have to walk far if I'm tired at the end of the day. I'm telling you, a lot of through hikers that you'll see their videos of, if this thing says 0.5 or more, man, that is not in my planning factor. I will not go there if I got to walk a mile round trip normally to get to a shelter, unless it's just severe weather or just something odd. Otherwise, I'm not walking more than about 0.3 or 0.4 off a trail. You may be different. We can see this shelter had a privy. It had a good water source, and it had tent sites, which it didn't have many. And that's the problem with the gut hooks with dadgum, what is it? Oh, AWOL's guide, sorry. Yeah, with AWOL's guide is it'll show you a tent space, but it won't show you how many there are around there. So you could get to the shelter and there's one tent space or two tent spaces and that's it. And from all the bubbles that I've seen, people walking in the bubbles, a lot of times, man, that's going to be taken up pretty quick if you don't get there early. And then this shelter holds 14 people. So I'm just reviewing that again for all of you planning a through hike, just so you know what you're looking at when you get your AWOL's guide. The numbers right down here, I know, yes, you're going to have to turn your head a little sideways. But this little center spot right here that has an arrow pointing both ways, this represents where the shelter is. And I know if I'm walking northbound, I've got 9.1 to the next shelter, 15.2 miles to the next shelter after that, and 21.9 miles to the third shelter. Same thing going backwards, back down south. So again, that's another easy way to read this. So encountered some problems this night. It got really, really cold this night, like 20 degrees. So I got to test out all my equipment one time in the cold weather, and my quilt and everything. My quilt's only a 20-degree quilt. It did perfect. However, I had some problems with some water freezing in my 2-liter my 2-liter bag, and we'll talk about that on the video, but that sucked. And then left out of here this morning, had a big climb. It's going from 4391 to 5062, so almost 700 feet right off the bat, straight up to get up to Chiowa Bald. Man, I tell you, these are some gorgeous views up there. Plan appropriately if you can. I wanted to get up here by sunrise. I didn't make it. There is a camping spot up on top here. Please remember this, because if you can get up there and the wind's calm and the weather's decent, what an amazing place that would be to A, get up there and camp in the evenings, and B, watch the sunset or sunrise come up there. So Chiowa Bald, don't forget that. That's important. Yep. And as most mountains in the south do, you get right to the top and you come right back down the other side. Trail again this day was pretty easy, man, when it comes to not a lot of rocks or roots. Scent Gap, we'll see that in the video. I think I stopped by there, or obviously went through there, but I think I videoed some of that. And ultimately down into Stacoa Gap, where I ate lunch and did some filming down there as well. Didn't do a real good map study leaving out here, or a book study, and started walking and then saw a sign to Jacob's Ladder or whatever. I'm like, oh man, I remember seeing something about Jacob's Ladder in Spielberg's video. Didn't really know what Jacob's Ladder was because not many people film it, because you're just getting your butt kicked up this straight incline. You can see it's almost 500-600 feet. Really steep, but in the end it wasn't that bad. You get up past Brown Fork, Gap shelter, which is right on the AT. How do I know that? Because there's no sign saying, you know, 0.3 west or whatever. Came back down and kept walking, and eventually I was going to make it, as you can see, turn the page this day, and made it to Walker Gap, where we bedded down for the evening. And then walked down to this footbridge right here to get water, and then back up and camped out at Walker Gap. Film a lot there, stopped just short, and that was the plan. I'm a guy who likes to Nero and only leave a little bit into the town I'm going to Nero in. Just a strategy of mine that I employed the whole trail. I would do a lot more miles the day before, so I could position myself and get in towns early the next day, spend all that day in town, and then hike out the next morning. So just what I like to do, and that's what I plan for this time. All right, y'all, gonna switch over to the video. All right, y'all, we're gonna kick this off. This is day 11. If you're looking at the videos on YouTube, this is video number 11. And I've been looking, and I was like, man, I need to go back and rename some of those videos a little bit better to help the through hikers coming up in the future years, so they can see where I moved during each video. So this one, you know, I'm going to go back and title it Sassafras Gap to Walker Gap, Sassafras Gap Shelter to Walker Gap Stealth Campsite. And that'll just make it easier. I recognize I need to do that. I didn't do it on the trail because it was just too much trying to post a video every day and worrying about the little things. So I'll try to go back and clean that up. All right, I'm going to start off inside my tent the morning of day 11, Sassafras Gap Shelter.
All right, y'all. It is day number 11. It's about 6:15. Yep, still in the tent. Cold as hell outside. Temperature gauge is reading 20 with some wind chill, so it's cold. Just enjoying some coffee. Just ate some oatmeal. Had 2 Pop-Tarts. Gonna start packing up now and start pushing north. It's gonna be a great day. I read everybody's comments up to this point. Try to reply to some tonight or last night, and I'll try to get to more today. I appreciate all of y'all's support and y'all following along. That's about it. Start pushing north.
Just some advice to those who are planning on vlogging, or, you know, even just posting your stuff on Facebook. It is hard, and I agree, man. It's hard to get up and try to read comments every day when you have service, and if you don't have Verizon, you might not be able to anyway. But I will tell you, for the followers out there, and I have been a follower now for the last 3+ months after I finished the trail, it is motivating as crap when people read your comments and just take the time just to say a little something back. And what it makes them do is even give more to you, the hiker. So I just say that for everybody of, man, it's great that you're taking time and posting your videos, but if you can go the extra step and just comment back to people and just show them that you generally care and are excited about what they're doing for you, man, that will come back to you tenfold, and it will just help, just almost like wind. I hate to be corny, but, you know, put some wind beneath those wings, like a strong wind at your back pushing you up mountains as you're heading northbound. So keep that in mind.
Block around with me. So I just put that in my quilt with me as I was eating breakfast and whatnot, and every time it would thaw a little bit, I'd pour that into my empty smart water bottles that I had used for cooking that morning. However, I've had dirty water in there in that Evernew bag, so now I'm just stopping, putting some Aquamira in both bottles, letting that work for about 15-20 minutes, and then that should clean the bottles out and make sure the water's good. The water source at that shelter is perfect. I don't have any concerns with that, but anytime you transfer water out of that dirty water bag, there's no telling if it has anything left over from previous usages. So just better safe than sorry. That's why I like Aquamira a little bit as well, just carrying a little bit, because I only have just enough to treat, again, maybe 10 or 15.
All right, so here I'm just describing my 4-pound block of ice that I'm carrying around in my Evernew bag. I filled it up like I always do the night before, because I like to just get up and drink my water that I have, use it for cooking, then refill my bottles and get moving without having to go back down to the water source. Well, this night I left the Evernew bag sitting just outside my tent, and it froze. Had I left it in the tent, my other water bottles didn't freeze at all. So a couple of things to take away there for you guys when it gets cold. If you're in your tent, the warmth inside your tent is a lot warmer than it is right outside your tent. And that's a good thing. That's why I like tenting versus staying in shelters when it's really cold. Um, my water bottles didn't have any ice in them whatsoever, and they were about 3 inches away from where my Evernew bag was, right outside the tent. So keep that in mind. Body heat is a good thing when it's that cold. The second thing what I was learning is, okay, I was thawing out my Evernew bag and I was pouring that water into my other bottles, but man, the Evernew bag was my dirty water bag. So I was contaminating my clean water bottles as I was doing it. So then I pulled out my Aquamira and put that in. Let's save this real quick and put that in there just to flush out or clean out any germs that were being transferred from that dirty water bottle as that ice was thawing. So a lot of lessons learned. The biggest lesson learned is don't be stupid and have a 4-pound block of ice that you're carrying around because you didn't protect your water from freezing. And the last thing you got to remember when you're, especially for all you guys getting ready to through hike next year, and you're wondering about, man, do I use a filter or do I use Aquamira drops? Or y'all probably know if you watch me, I went to all Aquamira at the end. It's just easier. You don't have to stop and pump anything. If I hit a dirty water source, I could stop and pull out my filter, but just don't need to a whole lot, even up in the Northeast. But you got to worry about contaminating where you're putting your mouth on your bottle. In the end, I just started using those sports caps, and that prevented a lot. I would fill the bottles up without the sports cap on in a creek, put some Aquamira in there, screw the sports cap on, my lips never touch the contaminated piece again. Aquamira cleans out the bottle, good to go. This is Chihuahua Bald right here.
And we're back up over 5,000. And man, I tell you, if you're coming through and you got enough energy to go past that shelter, fill up on water, and then come up that remaining hill, there's a incredible campsite here. Last night, not sure you could have survived with the wind and the cold, but this is amazing. That's your view. Good heavens. I'm gonna go ahead and turn the camera off and just sit here for a second. This is, again, speechless.
I will go back there before I die and camp out on that spot. That's how incredible it was.
See a little bit yesterday. For those of you coming in the spring, coming through there, it might be a good natural pause to take a 0 day or at least a Nero. It's really pretty cool, and if you can wind up there on a Saturday or Sunday, even better. Man, there's a beer garden right by the river. They were having kayak races yesterday. Just very cool atmosphere. Just isn't on my agenda, but so keep that in mind, and then know the next day if you're gonna tie it on, you're gonna suffer immeasurably for about 7 miles. And then if you keep going past the shelter, like I did once I got past shelter today.
You know, I hear a lot of questions. I just watched, by the way, Big Bird just did another question and answer today. Shout out to Big Bird, man. Man, I'm loving to see you still on YouTube and putting out some videos. Man, he is great at doing questions and answers for people, and I love hearing it. A lot of people have questions about, you know, starting in February and what kind of shoes. And man, he had all perfect answers for that. So if you got any of those questions, man, go over to Big Bird's channel and watch his videos. They are really good. But I'll tell you, the knock was the first time that I got around a group of people in a town and realized I was at a good place on my through hike. I wasn't with a party scene at all. The people that were there were more older generation kind of people, and I really enjoyed it. Don't get me wrong, man. Like, I ain't been a non-partier forever. I used to throw down, and that would be fun too if you were a younger cat. I would start later, probably in March, if that was if I wanted to partake in some of those festivities. But for some of you older folks who have left that part of your life behind, starting in February is a pretty good thing if you're not scared of the cold weather. So just keep that in mind. I would not change my start date at all. In fact, I might go a little earlier.
Yesterday was, hey, I heard your rucksack squeaking a little bit as you were walking. Does that bug you? It's like, honestly, man, I haven't even noticed it. It makes a lot less noise than the issued ones we got years ago in the military. But now I do hear it, so I appreciate that. So it probably will drive me crazy today. And then MC, and I already got to her, or commented back to her in the comments of, said, hey, looks like you've had great weather. And then the day I read that, it gets cold and I have a 4-pound block of ice sitting in my Evernew bottle. So thanks for that. It's funny. I guess I can handle what the trail throws at me and what y'all jinx me with, so keep it up. Just know I'm coming at you. If you're ever out here, I'm gonna start jinxing. Jinx. Alright.
Clearly being a little facetious there, and me and MC stayed pretty tight. She through hiked the trail the year before and was a great source of information, and I just liked when she gave me some of her tips, or just when I walked through an area, she would tell me what she did in that area, and I kind of, you just do it naturally as a pass-through hiker. I did it to everybody all this summer. I was like, man, I'm probably doing this a little too much, but it's just so fun reliving those memories, because it feels like you're almost out there walking with that person again, and you get to share what happened at that same exact spot when you were there. So I sure did appreciate having MC comment and follow me on the channel, and the banter we had back and forth sometimes. So MC, if you watch these, man, I appreciate you, and I kind of miss our conversations online.
Would have been better over the last 11 days. So I already had them in a box. She was just going to send them. And then I told her I was going into Franklin. I was going to go to the outfitter and possibly look and see if I can buy them there. And that's the last she heard. I never said what I did or didn't, which is my bad. And they didn't have the shoes I wanted there. So bottom line is I didn't get any shoes in Franklin, and she just sent my boxes out 2 days ago to meet me at Fontana, and the shoes aren't there because she thought I was going to buy some. So again, over communicate, because in the end it's on you, the person walking the trail. You're the one who, when you get to Fontana, there's very few places, or you don't have the ability to go purchase a lot of outfitter stuff before your days in the Smokies. Might not be a big deal for many people, and it really ain't for me. In fact, I think it's going to do me a favor, because it's going to rain Tuesday and Wednesday, which possibly means snow.
All right, so talking about footwear here, I'd come to the decision probably a week before, not even a week, but maybe 4 or 5 days before this, after a week on the trail, that the mid-top boots that I was wearing, the Gore-Tex ones, man, probably weren't the right choice, because it was a warmer winter and my feet sweat anyway. So I planned for Mrs. Early Riser to send out some more shoes, non-Gore-Tex shoes. And I didn't communicate clearly, and she was just trying to do the best that she could and what she thought was right from the last conversations we had. So the whole intent of this message is over communicate. Sometimes it feels like you feel like you're talking down to your spouse or whoever's supporting you. But I'm telling you, you're not, man. You make their life easier by communicating more often. And maybe sometimes you have to say the same thing, or just say, hey, just verify you did put the shoes in the mail, right? I didn't do that. I paid the price for it. It wasn't her fault. I think here we are at Simp Gap. Beautiful here, by the way. And again, I will also, on a bunny trail real quick, but I'd also tell you, all these views that we're getting right now in February and in March, you don't get when the leaves come on. You would not see anything right here in the summertime. So again, that's another reason why, if you care about max views, start early so you can stay in front of spring. Yep, so back to the shoes. I ended up having to go in the Smokies with the Gore-Tex boots. It ended up raining. Those damn things stayed wet about the whole time I was in the Smokies. So had I done things correctly and over communicated, the Smokies would have been a much more enjoyable experience, at least for my feet. Here we are at Sequoia Gap. Love this little launch today.
Because if you start at the knock and you're pretty fresh, you can probably make it here in one day. It's gonna hurt you, but you can probably do it. So check that out. I forgot to mention that I slept let's just say I didn't sleep a whole lot last night. It got cold, but the problem with the sleep wasn't necessarily the cold. 20-degree quilt was awesome. No issues. But there aren't any good camp spots there. And it was too late, and anything higher up would have been in that monsoon force wind. So I found a kind of flat place and just was sliding down all night long. If you got a Z-Pax duplex, or most tents are the same way with a slick bottom, you put your slick pad on there. If you're not at least semi-level, that joker is going to slide around like an ice skating rink. So anyway, looking for a flat spot tonight if I'm tenting. If I'm tenting it and try to get some sleep. I feel really good though. This place is full of energy. It really is. And if you ever start running out, just come up, even one that's covered with moss, touch it for a second, remind yourself of where you're at and why you're here, and you'll feel it, I promise. It's like a shot of adrenaline. Here we go. Hey y'all, I was thinking about Spielberg's through hike last year, for those of y'all who watched that, which I thought he did an incredible job. That was a fun one to watch. There was some drama that was going on at Jacob's Ladder one day, and you might remember without going back and looking, but I just don't want to waste my portable battery power.
So it's funny how you watch through hikers videos, and obviously Spielberg, y'all know how big of an influence his through hiking videos were on me before I stepped on the trail. And he actually commented, if you go down and read the comments on day 11, he commented on this video. And I think that was the first time he commented, and that kind of blew me away that, you know, he was watching my journey. And then you start critiquing yourself. Well, man, my videos kind of suck, I think, compared to his. And then I started worrying about it when I'm filming every day. Anyway, that's a different story. But yeah, it was cool. It was cool to remember that, man, he was having some drama here. And I don't mean drama in like a negative way, but man, he was seriously at a hard spot of what to do at this point. And he was, you know, scared. Should he push on? He tried to go to a, by the way, Stokoa Gap, you have a couple of options for hostels there. So check the guidebook because they're in there. And he tried. The lady said that he had a room. And then when he got there and called back, she's like, oh, I'm sorry, we don't have room, which is odd to me anyway. Like, you can't make space. You can't make, I'll go sleep in the garage. Like, that's odd that the hostel will turn somebody away. But anyway, yeah, so he was trying to make it to the next shelter, but he had to go over Jacob's Ladder, and it was a big deal. So remembering that when you're walking, it just kind of ties everything together as you're walking the trail, and it's cool. It's like this common experience that you all have. So that was pretty cool. I got to share that with Spielberg, and then he ended up commenting
And
on the
Skittles.
video.
And feel good about it. It is 12:51, day 11. First look at Fontana Lake down there.
Y'all can hear Cotton. She sees people walking over on the other side of the lake, and sorry if she barks a lot. Hey, I wanted to comment real quick on the tent thing too, sliding down. If you are stealth camping, especially when you get to the northeast, man, there's a lot of times you might have to camp on a place that isn't totally flat. And that can work. It's not that big of a deal, but especially in a duplex tent and it's raining, like that bathtub floor, and a lot of other tents have bathtub floors, but I can only speak for the duplex. That bathtub floor that sits up 6 to 8 inches, that 6 to 8 inches depends on you not touching it with your feet or sliding down and putting pressure against the side of the tent, because as soon as you do that, you're pushing that bathtub floor down. And that happened to me on another night as well, to where it started raining and the water that was hitting the ground was just bouncing up, little drips and stuff. And by the end of the night, man, my foot box was soaking wet. So there's things, somebody commented, Cotton, hush. So somebody commenting about my tent, and they said, hey, if you put, I can't remember what they were talking about. It wasn't shoe goo, but it was some kind of, like caulking material that you can put stripes across your bottom of your tent. It doesn't add a lot of weight at all. When it dries, it keeps your mat from sliding down. I thought that was a great idea. I haven't done it yet, but I'm going to. So I'm going to go back and look at the comments and see what material he was talking about using. And I'll probably do it, to be honest with you. So I thought that was a great tip. Just wanted to share that with you guys.
Still got a few blisters. Did everything that I've always done. I'm just prone to them. But after 100 and almost 60 miles now, my feet are finally adapting to the environment and to the shoes they're in. And I promise you, even the best broken in shoes aren't going to prevent problems with the terrain you're going to be going up and down. Keep that in mind. Blisters aren't that bad, but you better understand how to treat them. I just learned a new technique before I stepped out here. That if you thread the needle that you're going to pop your blister with some thread, and go ahead and run that thread through the blister, and keep a piece of the thread hanging out on both ends. Leave it that way. The blister won't keep filling back up. Whoever I stole that idea from, that was genius. I did it. It works. Trust me. All right. If you haven't tried to walk hills or gotten in the gym, your calves and your feet are going to have to adapt. And that's a hard one. Because adapting usually means if you try to move too fast or go too far, or even if you don't and you're just not ready, that's going to mean possible shin splints or plantar fasciitis. You can prevent a lot of that by being better prepared or bringing out a recovery tool or so, like I have, to work it out every night and try to stay ahead of it. Because once it's there, you're hurt. You're going to have to stop and recover once you have plantar fasciitis. Next, I'd say mentally. How do you mentally prepare? I wasn't kidding, or I was just kind of being facetious when I said get some clothes damp every night before you go to bed, put them in the refrigerator, and wake up and put those clothes on. You don't even have to wear them around long. Just make yourself put them on. Actually, go outside and then make yourself put them on. And then take them right back off. That's fine. But what you're doing is preparing your mind for the shock that's called the Appalachian Trail. Because without that, when you're having to adapt to all this new, all these new experiences, it's going to be overloading for many. And that is why many pull off at Nils Gap or at Dix Creek Gap. So anyway, just some tips. Adaptation is key. Start thinking to yourself, what can I start doing now on a daily basis, both body and mind, to help me adapt faster to the environment I know I'm going to. Out. It's 1608 for you military-minded folks. Just climbed a big old hill.
All right, so a couple of things real quick. I pulled up on my phone this video to read through the comments, and Zach Doherty, he gave the idea, and we're talking about your pads slip around your tent sometimes, if you have to do it on an uneven spot. He said he learned from Evan's Backpacking Adventures, I don't know if that was on YouTube or not, that if you use the rubber cabinet base mats, the things that you put under your dishes to keep them from sliding around in your cabinets, all you need is a couple of 10 to 11 inch pieces of that, and those things weigh nothing, by the way, and put that underneath your pad, man, it won't slip. That is a freaking great idea. So there's something for you through hikers for next year, man. That's a possibility. As you start cutting your weight down, that's probably one of the first things you'll get rid of. But I'm telling you, I would have carried it. I'd have carried it. Knowing what I know now, I would carry that next time, to be honest with you.
People. Again, it's another one of those shelters that are only less than a mile away from the road, so look like people are getting ready to have a good time, and I don't want to interrupt it, and don't want them to interrupt my sleep with their good time. So the introvert heads north, pushing north. So the goal is to go, I think it's 2.7 more miles and go down to a gap, find a camp spot, and there's some water, 0.2 right past that. So fill up, bed down, get some good sleep, head into Fontana Village tomorrow morning, check into the lodge and get my boxes. And then all the rest of the day is focused on preparing for the Smokies. Like, I'll be honest with you, I don't really go into places to sit around and relax. Man, I go in there and for me, it's all business. Don't get me wrong, I enjoy it, but that's what I enjoy. That's how I have my good time, is to know that I'm prepared to step off in the Smokies. My wife taught the Standing Bear Hostel today. I think it's about 4 days into the Smokies, and they relayed there's a lot of snow up there, so I'm excited about that. Been lugging this freaking gear for about 160 something miles now. I'm good with some snow. It's better than rain any day. All right, I'm rambling. Out. Finally made it to Walker Gap. This is where I'm gonna bed down. There's some water down the trail. Little ways, 0.2 down the hill. I'm gonna drop my rut real quick and run down there and carry the water. Make sure there is before I set up camp. That sign's going in the tree. Nature's amazing. There it is again, y'all. You voted against me. You done won twice. Why can I not let go of that word? All right, y'all. I'm gonna set up shop. In fact, I'm gonna walk up that hill right there and see if there's any views. Maybe a better place up there. Anyway, all right. I'll do a final wrap up. End up day 11. Whoo, tired. Started at Sassafras Gap Shelter. It is the first shelter that you get to when you come out of the NOC. And it's a tough climb, so keep that in mind for those coming behind. And it was cold as hell last night. So lessons learned from me today that I gotta remember is gotta protect the water bag and don't let it turn into a 4-pound block of ice. Thank God that Ever New bag's so durable, because it lasted throughout the day. I had to wear it on the outside of my pack and let it melt. Anyway, let's not do that again. One of the things I just want to reiterate on is preparation and adaptation. Everybody knows when they come out here, and I would love for pass-through hikers to weigh in a little bit here, but you're going to go through a huge adaptation, and how big it is up to you. Mine has not been that much because I prepared pretty hard. I slept out in my tent and in my sleeping system when it's cold, and I read a lot of other people commenting that they do that same thing. Man, that's good. I freaking spent years knowing what suck is, meaning having to put on wet clothes in the jungle, or wet clothes or cold clothes in a cold weather environment. So that adaptation wasn't that hard for me. I had 100 miles on the shoes before I got out here. Still get blisters, man. I'm telling you, this terrain is tough to rep. All right, y'all. So I talk a lot about adaptation, probably to the point where a lot of you are like, man, shut up about the adaptation. But for new thru hikers, I'm telling you, this is early risers advice, and I don't hear a lot of other thru hikers talking about adaptation to the trail. Everybody will tell you, hey man, go slow at first. I think that's good advice, or don't do so many miles. But let's look at adaptation. Your feet are going to have to adapt. Your stomach's going to have to adapt to the food you're going to eat. Your body's got to adapt to not getting as much sleep and walking, 10, 15 miles a day over frickin' mountains. This ain't walking down the street. You're walking over mountains. These are things that are going to take a toll on your body. Having to get up and put on wet clothes. If your stuff gets wet in the rain or you're walking in the rain, all of these things are going to culminate. They're going to coalesce together, and it's going to drive you, that little bad devil to get on your shoulder, all those dark thoughts to come up. The more you are prepared and that you have plans on how to get through those times, and you have a better mindset, the more of a chance you're going to make it to Katahdin. And that's what I want for every one of you that starts, man. That's what it's about. It's finishing the journey. So please take heed to not just me, to other thru hikers. Adaptation is key. The faster you can adapt up front, the better you're going to start enjoying your hike, and the more likely you're going to stay on the trail, which is all I care about for you guys. I don't know. We'll see what happens. Get a couple of boxes and prepare to take the Smokies. Be a full attack into the hills. All right, y'all. Hope everybody's doing well. I have no cell phone coverage here. at where am I at? Walker Gap. So I'll try to get these videos posted tomorrow. Out. Tell you how much I enjoy this. Got my ramen with some tuna in it, cooked. That may sound gross to some people, but it's delicious. Got the tent set up. As soon as I get done eating, pretty cool shot with that sun over my shoulder, huh? As soon as I get done eating, I'm gonna roll my legs out, get in the tent, make yesterday's movie and today's movie.
All right, so something funny happened this night before I forget, man. It's you don't forget these things. Everybody's like, man, how do you go back and remember all this stuff? Man, you don't forget. Like I still watch people walking the trail, and I can tell you what's coming around the next bend, what the next rock looks like in a lot of their videos, no matter where they're at on the trail. Um, this night was funny. I was sleeping in the tent, and I'm right off the trail here. Like the trail, like the camera, the way it's facing, the trail's right behind. I'm looking towards the trail, and it's about 10 yards away. Um, it was probably about 10 or 11 o'clock at night. I'm already sleeping hard, and I see a light coming down the trail, and I can't process what it is, man. At first, I thought it was a vehicle, and then you wake up enough to realize that okay, it isn't a vehicle. And then it looks like somebody's going back and forth. I could tell it's a headlamp. All they were doing is going back to little switchbacks down the hill, but I couldn't process what it was. So I started, hey, what's going on out there? I was like, okay, I don't have a gun. Like, what the hell? Because I hadn't seen any night hikers up to this point, and it was a night hiker. He was trying to make it to Fontana, and I couldn't remember his name, but I told him what my name was, early riser, and not expecting to see this dude ever again. And when we get into the Smokies, the first night when I share the hut or the shelter with 9 other guys or 8 other guys, Kansas being one of them. That wasn't in Kansas that night. This was Downward Cow, I think is his name. And I hope he watches these videos, or I hope I get to meet up with him sometime. But it was him. And I was freaked out, man. He went by. I probably sounded like a bumbling idiot because I don't think I ever fully woke up. But it was hilarious because I thought it was a car coming down the trail, which doesn't make any sense whatsoever. But anyway, it was a funny story. Downward Cow, if you're out there, man, just know that I remember you and I remember that night, and I thought that was funny. Okay, y'all, I know this is about 40 minutes, man. Hopefully you get something out of it. Again, I'm just putting these out there. Whether they get a lot of views or not really isn't that important at this point. I just want to give some tools for thru hikers to use next year as they start planning. And that's what's important. I think that's what all of us want to do. We want to give back to all of you who helped follow along or who's going to go have a magical journey, and I want to help build that journey up for you and make it even more magical by giving you some tips to where you don't have to think so much about what are you going to do in the logistics, and you can enjoy the trail. All right, y'all, deuces, man. I hope everybody has a good Wednesday evening. Weekend's almost here. Out.